Good morning, everyone. It's Petty Officer Romero with Job Corps. Today's lesson is going to focus on our personal development and discuss the various things that you need to be aware of as you become a professional and you want to not only get a job, keep a job, interview well. These are the things that are important that you need to focus on. So what I'm going to do is spend a couple of minutes going over some things that your employer is going to be looking for when you go on an interview, or if you have a job and what their expectations would be. And then we'll also go into some videos about some little things that, it's amazing how the little things are the important things. The little things that you focus on are the things that create a perception, and that's how your employer looks at you. That's how your employer sees you. That's how the world sees you, okay? So it's important for you guys to focus on these things if it is your goal to start a career, have a good job, have people look at you as the person they want to advance in your career. So let's get started. We're going to go over here to the big board, and we are going to look at the top 10 qualities and skills employers are looking for, okay? So we're going to start off, and I looked for something when I did this. I looked for something that was what I would consider the basics, okay? And generalized, because here are the things. You are in a security field, in the security field. We're training you for that. You may find that you go out for an interview and it has nothing to do with security, but it doesn't mean it's not a good job. And if the employer thinks you're a good fit, there are basic things that you need to do, whether you're a security officer, whether you're working accounting, administrative, working in production, or whatever it is. There are general things that you need to do in order to progress, because some people do them by default. Some people need a little bit of motivation to push them in that direction. If you're trying to get that good job, here's some things you need to do. All right, communication skills. The ability to communicate clearly and effectively in many mediums, by email, verbally, with lists, and by phone messaging on the phone, and with body language. Communication is also listening skills and the ability to follow directions and positive and provide feedback. 2, honesty. I think that's a given, that your employer, just like anybody else in your life, they want to feel that they can trust you, that when you tell them something that they can count on. Think about this from the perspective of if you're an employer. Forget about, because I'm also saying mom, dad, your family members, your friends, they want to count on you. They want to know that when you talk to them, you're being honest in the information you provide. But let's take it a step further and look at your employer. If your employer turns to you and says, hey, what happened in this situation? Or how many times did, go back to security. How many times did you walk the perimeter of the building that night? And you like, half dozen, boss. And come to find out you only did it twice. Now that boss is going back to his boss and telling them some information that they counted on you to be honest with them about. So if you understand that this part of, the honesty is important to everyone. They want to know that every time I go to this employee, every time I go to David Romero, I know that I'm going to get the correct information, even if sometimes that information may, not be flattering to me. If my boss comes up to me and says, hey, did you have a class today? And I say, well, things happened and something popped up and I wasn't able to do the class today. Because if you say yes and they turn around and embarrass themselves on all kinds of different levels, it could be entry level, just them thinking something and they tell their boss and find out that they made a fool out of themselves in a meeting, telling their boss information you gave them, or as high as something as, if you're a police officer and you say this happened and all of a sudden video footage comes up and that's not what happened and they already told the media. It's already on the news. The newspapers are, reporting it. It could be really, really embarrassing. Okay. So employers want accurate and timely information regarding their business and their employees. Made a mistake, don't cover it up. Admit it and learn not to do it again. Okay. So, hey, boss, I didn't do this, but in the future, I'll make sure that gets done. I'm sorry. We'll take care of it. So it's being honest is a very positive thing. Technical competency. Most positions require certain skills that are advertised on the job posting. If you are hired to perform certain tasks, then you should have the skills to do it, right? Improving your skills along the way is also expected. So you get there, you learn some things. We can teach you all kinds of things here at Job Corps, but we can't prepare you for the exact job that you're going to have in the future. So I say this in almost every class. Your job will teach you the requirements of that job, the policies, the procedures. We can teach you the general information, what you're going to need to know, but you're going to need to have the information that specific to that job, and the only person that can teach you that is your job. Okay. Work ethic. Be at work on time. Do what you were hired to do. Meet targets and deadlines, and work to the best of your ability. What more could your employer ask? That's pretty basic. I like that. But again, some of you guys, especially young guys, some of this stuff's not common sense. You know, it's not always taught anymore. We have a fast-paced society. Not everybody takes the time to slow down and explain some of these things, because let me tell you, if you've come from an environment where the expectations are pretty low, your teachers in school weren't very demanding, you may not be prepared for a job that people expect you to perform. And there is no like, well, I'm just going to do this, that, and the other. Where's my check? You might get away with that for a little while, but eventually they'll get rid of you. People expect to get something back for the money that they're paying you for the job. And it's something that a person who takes pride in what they do says, and it won't mean that you'll like everything. There'll be things that you simply don't like. But you must have the attitude that if they're going to pay me to do the job and I'm going to take the money, then I need to provide them the services that they're paying me for, or go find another job. That is being a professional. Okay. That is being an adult. That is being responsible. If you don't like the job, then go find another job. You know, it's as simple as that. Find a job that you enjoy, that you do the things that you want to do. And when they pay you, you got paid for doing the job that the company asks you to do, and do it well. Okay. Flexibility. Employers and their employees need to react quickly to changing business conditions. Employers need employees who can change gears and adapt as required. Hey, a great example of it is the coronavirus situation. Matter of fact, I was hired about a week. I think I was there 1 week before all the students went home. I was required to do certain things. I was required to or asked to be an instructor. I was asked to lead the kids in this program, and all of a sudden I became a video creator. Now, of course, I'm creating videos but I was sent home. We had to work from home. All of a sudden, the job became completely different. Okay, sometimes it's just the nature of any business. You have to be flexible. You have to understand that everything changes constantly. Matter of fact, if you are a business owner, one of the things that they talk to you about is you have to constantly be adapting to the market. Let's say that you are a computer repair shop, right? And you say, this is what I do, this is how I do it. Then you start finding out that computers just aren't a big thing anymore. What's a big thing now is iPads or tablets, right? Whichever variety of tablets there are out there. But if you sit there and say, I'm a computer repair shop, that's what I always wanted to do, and that's when the market is going to leave you behind. Okay? How are you going to make a living? How are you going to be a successful business when you are to make a funny analogy, a computer repair shop today might have been a VCR repair shop in the past. If those people would have said, hey, I repair VCRs and that's what I do, that's what I'm an expert on, and all this computer stuff, I'm not messing with it, right? Where would they be today? So when I use that analogy, what I'm trying to say to you is you can't run a business without employees who are flexible and say, man, every day, every week, there's going to be change and you have to adapt to it. If you say, I was hired here a year ago and this is what we do, I mean, very easily because of the coronavirus, if I want to stay at this job, they could say to me, Mr. Romero, we expect you to work from home or come to the office, and every day we want you to make a video and we want you to put it on the internet for the kids' consumption so that they can learn something. And that could be my new job from this point forward. And I have to be flexible with that. And if you really think about it, as times change, you have to grow with the world. And sometimes it might be little things that are irritating, so it's not always like, oh, well, we're going from VCRs to computers. It might be just little things, but that's how everything evolves, is just little by little by little. And you have to be flexible enough to understand it. If you're a security officer, today we write down in a logbook. Tomorrow they're going to put out a computer and say, we expect you to put your information in the computer. And if you, man, I don't want to do that, man. It takes too much time. I don't like messing with those computers, all that stuff. You have to adapt. That's part of being flexible. It's part of being a modern employee, okay? The days of things staying the same, gone. Determination and persistence. Managers will give employees challenging goals, but generally they are achievable. And that's the key to being a good employer, a good manager, is you always want to make sure that the goals that you give your employees are achievable, right? The key is to be able to work hard and keep moving forward when you encounter obstacles. 7, ability to work in harmony with coworkers. Nobody, especially employers, you got enough challenges in life. You don't want to have that employee that's always grinding with the other employees, right? Oh, can't get along with this. You don't like my politics. They don't like sports. I pull for the Jets and he pulls for the Giants. Nobody wants to deal with all that. It's like, oh, it's always a problem. It's always somebody. I don't like the way we do this. I don't like the way. Nobody wants that. So be a professional. Keep in mind, the main thing you have to keep in mind is the employer pays you to do a job. When you get to the point where you're not happy doing that job, you need to move to another job. I mean, it's as simple as that. The company will not. I'm telling you, think about someone who invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into a tiny business, or millions of dollars into a medium-sized business, tens or even hundreds of $1 million into a huge business. Do you think they're really going to change the way they do everything because you don't like it? So when you put it in that perspective, is you can only buck so long before eventually, and this is how it happens. You'll buck and they'll try and they'll work with you, and you start thinking that you're getting away with it, and sooner or later some little thing happens, and that's the thing they use. And you see it happen all the time when an employee gets fired. Now, oh, well, they just fired me for some silly little reason. But you know what? Guaranteed it wasn't that little silly reason is not the only reason they fired you. They fired you because you were not willing to work with others. You weren't willing to improvise and be persistent and determined. You weren't flexible. You just came in there thinking that you wanted to do it your way. And if they don't do it your way, you ain't going to do it, and you're not going to cooperate. Eventually, those types of employees will get weeded out, because not only because that person's not productive, but when you start dragging down the other employees too, and their morale goes down because of your complaining and you're unhappy and you don't like the way things are done, eventually they will realize that, and they will find someone, because you're not only affecting your job, you're affecting the jobs of other people. And so a company can't operate with a bunch of negativity. You're going to always have issues. You're going to complain. You're going to vent. You're going to talk to the other. That's normal. Let's be real. That's normal. But when you get to the point where you're just disgruntled and unhappy about everything, and you don't even want to do your job anymore, you're just going there to collect a check, that's when the problems occur. Okay. All right. Excuse me. Eager and willing to add to their knowledge base and skills. That means you come in, and we have a few of those instructors in the pandemic really illustrate that. We have instructors who their entire life revolved around woodwork, plumbing, electrical, and not around computers. Now all of a sudden the kids go off site, and we now have to adjust. We have to learn. Now we have to learn how to make videos. We have to learn how to get on Google Class. We have to learn all these things so that we can do our jobs. Now it's a whole new way. You have to be able to be flexible, learn how to improve your knowledge base and grow. It's something that's expecting. Problem solving skills. Companies are looking for people who are motivated to take on challenges with minimal direction. People don't want to stand over employees, and now you have a lean companies always trying to make more money, less employees. That means less management. That means they want more employees who are self-sufficient, right? So companies are looking for people who are motivated to take on challenges with minimal direction. Employees should see when someone or something needs to be done and react accordingly. Okay. Loyalty. Employers want employees who need to be able to trust their employees to work professionally to meet the employer's best interest. Employers do not want to hire people who require close scrutiny or who cannot be trusted to represent the company in public. All right, so there you go. Top 10 things. Let's see. How do you let an employer know that you have these qualities when you're applying for a job? I'm gonna go over this real quick, see what they have to say. I actually was more interested in the list, but let's just see what this says. Provide a resume that uses the words employers are looking for. A lot of times, many times, oftentimes, your resume, and I've talked to you in the past about interviewing, is perception, but the same thing goes. Before you get that interview, you have to have a resume that speaks the right language, and that means saying the things. And you'll find that I remember thinking inside or outside the box was a big thing. You have to keywords that go through industries, and management and HR want to see these key phrases, and it catches their eye. I'm like, oh, this person understands and basically it's they understand the new lingo. But you have to have your resume reflect these things. Let's see. Send a cover letter with your resume and clearly demonstrate you understand the skills needed. So a resume is going to tell you all your job history, what skills you have or whatever. The cover letter is what explains who you are. Hello, I'm Mr. Romero, and I'm looking for a job that I can use my skills to help a company improve their productivity. I offer this skill and that skill, so you paint a little picture. You don't be too wordy, but you want to paint a picture of who you are and what kind of position you're looking for and how you think you can help the company. Okay. Make sure references will say good things, obviously, and that they're up to date. Let's see. Have a great letter of reference from a previous employer to give to the prospective employers. I don't know. Nowadays, it just seems like things move so quickly. It used to be people and employees stayed at the same job for a long time. Now there's a lot more movement, and it's statistically proven that people are always looking for something they perceive to be a little bit better. So that's kind of a challenge when you go somewhere for a year and a half and say, hey, can I get a letter saying how great I am? So personally, I don't know how effective that would be. And I also don't know if a current employer is really looking for something like that. Or if you have a job already, can I get a letter from you so I can go get this other job that might pay me a little bit more or I like better? So that one's kind of a tough one. But have good communication skills on your resume, on the telephone and a job interview. We talked about having these words, like using the proper phrases, talking about the right things, and we'll continue to emphasize that as we grow in our personal development. Have examples and stories to tell in the interview of how you learned something or how you solved a problem. We talked about it. You want to paint that picture. You want to paint your picture, not the picture that they're trying to paint you into when they start asking you questions and start getting you in a jam. You want to have a way to transition smoothly into your story that you want to tell, not the story that they're trying to get you to tell. And I always say this, like, interviewer have a handful of things that they're going to ask you just to start the conversation. So when they start asking these questions, they're not necessarily going to tell us about your biggest weakness, Mr. Romero. Well, quite frankly, they're not necessarily trying to hear about your biggest weakness. They're trying to start a conversation and use the information that you give them to kind of see where this is going. So that's why I always ask you guys, and we did a development interview question to give you a good transition when they say, tell us about your biggest weaknesses. Well, you know what? I found that I'm weak in this area, but here's how I improve that, and showing how you're willing to take something you're not good at and make it better. Okay. All right. So that is all I have for that, but I have a couple of videos here that I want to show you. And I made them. Some of them will be from the internet, but I want to talk about other areas of personal development. Okay. All right. So I have a video here and that I want to share with you. And the video is mostly about your appearance. And so take a look at this and try to absorb as much as you can, because this is not the type of stuff that you get tested on. This is the type of stuff that the more I talk to you about it, hopefully the more you'll realize the importance of it. And if I can explain it properly, then you'll know that it's something that is extremely important and will be super helpful to you in your career. Okay, so take a few minutes. Let's pay attention to this.
When you started talking about getting a job, you always think about maybe your qualifications, your education, your background. But the reality of it is the higher you go up the food chain in pay, the more perception is reality. And what I mean by that is if, let's say, you go and get an $8, $9, $10 an hour job, generally speaking, you are going to interview, and all the employer wants to know is, do you have reliable transportation, and can they count on you to show up for work? And you'll get the job as long as that you can kind of prove to them in conversation that you have your stuff together a little bit, and that you're not incompetent. You're going to get the job. As the money moves up and the requirements move up and the pay obviously goes up, then you start having to compete for jobs. Now, if you're talking about a $15, $16, $18 an hour job, when you walk into that interview, you can believe that maybe in the waiting room will be a handful of other people who are applying for the same job, and that HR has already talked to many, many people for that job. Because again, the higher the pay, the more people want the job. So you could be the very best, the most qualified person for the job. But how does the employer know that? Especially if you walk in and, let's say, for instance, when I started at Job Corps, it was the week that everybody was doing cleanup at the lake. People came back from the lake and their boots were muddy. And it's just coincidentally that week I'd already started talking to the students who were there about perception and about them being professional and looking a certain way. So we already started shining our boots. And then you guys came from the lake. Boots, I mean, you were working, I get it, but your boots were dirty. And my first impression was, these guys really care. Do they care what I think about them? I'm your instructor, but what if I was your employer? And what an employer looks at is someone who's willing to go above and beyond what's required of them to do the little things. It's not really about your boots. It just shows that if you take pride in your appearance, you're probably going to take pride in other things. So we started talking about, again, shining boots. Do you want an employer to think of you when you walk in as someone who's sharp and cares about not only their appearance, but how you might take responsibility at their job, at their company, how you might care more about making sure that your workspace is clean and neat, how your jobs might be be done better and more effectively, more efficiently? Do you want them to look at you in a way that says, hey, I think this person is better suited for this job than the other person before they even interview you? Because one of the things I will tell you is that when you go into a job, many times it's a feel that an employer has. There are going to be a lot of people with the exact same qualifications that you have. So are you going to impress them with the fact that your shirt's pressed and your shoes are sharp and that you're dressed for the position? Or you just think that you're going to get by with the fact that you have a good background and a resume? Because I promise you, for every resume you have out there, there's 100 of them that are just as impressive. So your one shot is striking the employer that you care about the little things, that you care about how you come across, that you care about doing the little things right. And that's the difference between getting that job and not getting a job. Now, there's a lot of other things that's included, and we'll continue to work on that. But the first thing, and this lesson is kind of pointing to, is that you want to make sure that when you walk in that door, your new potential employer, or keep in mind, sometimes there's multiple interviews. You want that first person to think highly of you to recommend you for the second interview, where you actually meet the person who potentially could be your boss. So sometimes you have to go through levels, but when you meet those people, you want them to think of you as a sharp person who cares with the background that they're looking for. All right, that's today's lesson. Get those boots shined up, get that appearance looking sharp, because when you go in that interview, you want to make a great first impression. I'm Petty Officer Romero.
All right. So now we covered that area. Another area that we're going to cover is professionalism, leadership, ethics. And I want to share this video with you that I made, and I think that it will cover those areas and, again, reinforce things that we have discussed in the past. So here we go.
This one, our subject, professionalism, leadership, and ethics. Now, when I get into professionalism, I'm going to go back to talking about how you should look sharp, how you should be presenting yourself as a professional, because when you are on a scene and you're interacting with a person or a group of people, they will quickly determine how they feel about you, and you'll create a perception, and that perception will help you control the situation. If the people in that situation respect you, then you'll notice that they respond better. And so as we talk about the professionalism, it's how you behave, how you carry yourself, and it's also your appearance. We talk about this repetitively, and it's important that you understand that you go in there, you look sharp, you look the part, and you carry yourself, your demeanor, your posture, that you go in there looking professional, and people will respond to it. We talked about it during interviews, but we're also talking about it when you're dealing with the public. If you go in looking like a bum, people will treat you like a bum. So if you go in looking sharp and respectful and professional, that's the treatment you get. So as we've talked about in the past, go in with a uniform that looks sharp. Make sure it's tucked in. Make sure that your boots aren't muddy or dirty. And, if you had a chance to shine them up, which is not always an opportunity depending on how you work day. You can't stop in the middle of the day to shine your boots. But those things are important on how people present or perceive you. Also, leadership. You'll notice that when we talk about leadership, again, people follow you based on how you behave. Most people, you hear them, I want respect. Well, respect is earned. You can, by walking into a situation with that uniform, you'll initially get respect simply because of the position you're in. But then people will quickly decide whether or not that they really want to follow you by your behavior, by the leadership that you demonstrate, by the way that you carry yourself. And then it moves on into the third topic is ethics. Especially when dealing with the people, you have to be the person who is the leader in doing things the way you're supposed to. There are procedures, there are, and I'll use it on campus. The ethics, for instance, basic security does lunchroom. So when you guys are standing at door, on watch at the door, that you're not letting some of the people in and not the others, and you kind of let some things slide. I mean, at some point you have to follow procedures, or else you'll lose respect from everyone once they realize that your ethics aren't there. And that simply means that everywhere you go, and if you notice that there's a flow to this, as law enforcement, as corrections, people are expecting you to be the person who follows the rules, applies the rules fairly to everyone, is professional, and demonstrates leadership. So if you're going into this field, you are expected to be the leader. You're expected to be the one that people can look to in a situation and know that they can handle it. So
all right, so there you go. More things to consider about your professionalism and ethics and being a good employee. So I want to present one more video for you guys, and it just I liked it because as I was doing my research, he points out something that I say to you guys all the time, which is, being the most qualified isn't always why you get the job or why you get promoted. So let's look at some other issues about being professional and how it can affect you. All right.
You work just as hard at your job as everyone else, maybe harder, but does it ever seem like all your coworkers are getting promoted while you're just getting left in the dust? The truth is, sometimes being great at your job and working hard is not enough. More often than not, it's about presenting yourself more professionally so that your boss can start to see you as more of a leader. In this video, I'm going to explain how you can be more professional so you can have a better shot at getting that promotion and the recognition that you deserve. Hey guys, I'm Kyle from The Distilled Man. So if you want to be seen as a rising star at your company, you're going to have to put in some extra work. And I'm not talking about extra job-related duties at your desk, because if you're aiming for promotion, you're probably already giving your regular duties as much as you can. You're going to need to put in some extra effort to becoming a more professional employee. Bosses look for people who already demonstrate that they can be leaders before they're given extra responsibility. So without any further ado, here are my tips on how you can be more professional at work. And big thanks to Carl Friedrich for sponsoring this video and supporting the channel. Number 1, walk and talk like a leader. What kind of person do you picture when you think of a leader? Probably not that woman who's slouched over her computer all day, or that awkward guy who avoids eye contact and won't say hi in the hallway. Leaders are typically charismatic and relatable. But that doesn't mean that you need to be loud or an extrovert to be a leader. In fact, I know plenty of leaders who are soft-spoken, but it does mean that you need to carry yourself with a certain level of confidence. Whenever you need to get up from your desk and walk somewhere, pay attention to your posture. Stand up straight, pull your shoulders back, make eye contact, and smile at everyone you pass. Good posture is important at your desk too. No matter how hard you're working, it kind of sends the wrong message if a boss or a coworker comes over to your desk and they see you just slumped halfway down in your chair, right? Leaders also speak with confidence and purpose. If you find that your public speaking skills need some help, take a class, or you can check out my post on how to master public speaking. And if you find yourself using a lot of filler words like like, then you can check out my video on the topic to help make your speech more meaningful and more direct. Number 2, build meaningful relationships with your coworkers. So if you've been in your job for a while, it's easy to get into a routine where you just want to come in, get your work done, and get home as soon as possible. It's easy to isolate yourself from your coworkers if you aren't careful, so just take time to start a conversation with the people you work with. And not only those people at your level, but also those people who are maybe 1 or 2 steps above your level. People love to feel acknowledged, so if you work in a big company, try to get to know as many people by their first name as possible. Ask them about their pets, ask them about their kids' names, ask them what they did on the weekend, or maybe even ask a few of them if they want to go to lunch on Friday instead of sitting at your desk eating a sandwich. It's all about making connections. You're probably a great person, but if you don't take time to build relationships with people, then they're not going to know that. And bosses definitely take notice when people are well liked by their peers. And they might even ask your coworker's opinion if you're being considered for promotion. So it helps to have as many people in your corner as possible. Number 3, and guys, this is a big one, stop writing crappy emails. So what you write at work says just as much about you as what you say. Keep your emails short and to the point. If you write a novel-length email, people are more likely to miss important information. Plus, it sends the message that you don't really respect their time. If you can say it in 3 sentences, why say it in 3 paragraphs? And speaking of not wasting people's time, try to refrain from getting involved in forwarding email chains and funny memes that your coworkers might be involved in sending. You want your writing to come across as professional at work. So if you're not the best writer, at least try to start by using a free program like Grammarly, which can help with some of the basics like spelling and grammar. There's also tons of books on how to write better business correspondence. This is one that I have that I enjoyed, but there's tons out there. And if you want more tips on how to write better emails, you can check out my post, How to Write Business Emails That Don't Suck, which I will link to in the description below. Lastly, you should never assume that any work emails you send are private. Assume that anyone in the company might read your email at some point. So trashing your boss or your coworker or your client, not exactly the best move. Number 4, and you've heard this before, dress for the job you want, not the job you have. Aside from wearing a tuxedo to work, it's pretty hard to overdress for most office jobs. And you're way more likely to be considered for a promotion if you overdress versus being that weird guy who always wears a saggy Hawaiian shirt to work. Look at how your manager and other people at that level dress. Sometimes it might be as simple as upgrading from just wearing a dress shirt to maybe occasionally throwing on a tie or occasionally layering on a casual sport coat. Even if your company does casual Fridays, you still want to look more presentable and more professional than everyone else. It's not just the clothes that make a man either. Dressing well is important, but you also want to take a look at your accessories. A pair of scuffed shoes is going to detract from your look no matter how nice your pants and shirt are. Even the bag that you bring your lunch or your laptop to work in says a lot about you. Now imagine a well-dressed guy who brings a nice leather attaché to work every day. Now imagine that same guy using a leftover trash bag or grocery bag to bring his stuff in. Big difference. That's why I've partnered with today's sponsor, Carl Friedrich. They make professional looking bags that can really take how you're perceived at work to the next level. Their Pallet C briefcase is just the right size, for an everyday bag. You don't want anything too bulky, but you also want it to be able to fit all your daily essentials like a 15-inch laptop, a notebook, some documents, and some other odds and ends. And I like that the contemporary design of the Pallet C is sophisticated enough to make a statement, but it's not over the top. Also, the Pallet C is made from vegetable tanned Italian vachetta leather. So over time, it's going to darken and develop a beautiful, unique patina as you use it more. Carl Friedrich is based in London, but their products are handmade in Italy, and you can tell they put a lot of great care in it.
All right. So I like the first part of it, but I don't know if I need you guys bringing your Italian bags to work to try to make a point. But it does apply. So kind of going a little bit further than I wanted to, but I liked what he had to say at the beginning about making relationships with people and being more professional and watching the way you carry yourself. That was the message that I liked about that. All right, so that's all I have for this class. Take this stuff to heart because this is not graded stuff. Okay, this is stuff that is your personal development. You have to embrace it. You have to say, this is what's going to make me a better employee, which means makes me more money, gives me a better career, better opportunities. And you have to embrace it and try your best to be as much of a professional as possible because it directly relates to advancement opportunities and money. So absorb it. I hope that you find this stuff to be things that you want in your life so that you can improve your positioning so that you can get that better job. Because if you blow this kind of stuff off, you will find the people who do that kind of stay in that same position. They're the guys complaining about everything because they feel like nothing ever works out for them. And you don't want to be that person. But I find that I'm not saying everybody's going to be the vice president of whatever company. But if you want to maximize your opportunities in life, you have to take this stuff in and you have to make it part of how you behave. Because I promise you talked about people slumping over and just like, nobody's going to advance somebody like that. You have to make them feel that you're the person that I'm the leader. I'm going to take the bull by the horns. I'm going to do a great job for you. And those people get advanced. All right. For Job Corps, Petty Officer Romero, another personal development video. I hope you learned something and I hope you implement these things into your thought process and your career.